What up, Raf leaders? Welcome back to my channel. We are back at the seawall here. We're at Conversation Tree Road. This is looking out at the Atlantic Ocean. Remember I said putting these mangrove trees not only blocks the seawall, the view from the seawall, it also creates this area in which all the garbage is being dumped over the seawall, gets trapped between the mangroves and the seawall. That's looking east on Rupert Craig Highway, and this is Conversation Tree Road. So what we want to do is to continue our walk down Conversation Tree Road. Last time we were down this way, they were still building out the new road from Conversation Tree to Dennis Street. They were close to completing that road, but it wasn't completed. So what we want to do today is to see what happened now that the road is completed. What does it look like? So let's cross over. That's East Coast Highway looking east. And that's looking west. On this west side of Conversation Tree Road, that is Bel Air Gardens, and on the east side, I think that's Bel Air Springs. We haven't done a walk through the Bel Airs yet. Guess we will eventually get around to doing that. But yeah, we were going to go through this neighborhood sometime in future. It is in fact a gated community, but we won't do it here. Now it says Bel Air Springs entrance. Right, that's what the sign says. Entrance to Bel Air Springs. Bel Air Springs entrance. And they're referring to this street that goes into Bel Air Springs, and there's a little guard hut at the entrance. We're going to do that another day. On the other side, I think there's also a gated community that is guarded, and we're going to take a look at that again at some point. Usually these communities are homes of the ambassadors and embassy staff, diplomatic staff. In this case, I think the Canadian ambassador and Canadian diplomats live in Bel Air Gardens. But here we are on this new Conversation Tree Road. It has now been completed and marked. They've put up these street lights. You can see these LED lights. LED street lights have been put up all along Conversation Tree Road. And Conversation Tree Road now goes all the way down to Dennis Street. And remember, they were building a walkway down the center. They had put some foot washing stations and what appeared to be sinks, wash basins for hands. I want to see what happened to that, because it seemed rather strange, a strange choice for public infrastructure. Foot washing stations, I suppose somebody was justifying and saying that, oh, you need foot washing stations if you had kids playing in what essentially is a park, and kids probably need to wash their feet. I don't know, it's not something you would find in a North American park. Certainly not a park that is not by the beach, not by the ocean. I'm sure you'll find it at, say, Jones Beach, but you wouldn't find it in, I might be wrong, but I don't think there are foot washing stations in Central Park or Prospect Park or any one of the vest bucket parks in Brooklyn, Queens or Manhattan or the Bronx, Staten Island. But yeah, let's go see what it looks like. So this is the intersection of the train line road. You can see there's still piles of sand here. These piles of sand are supposed to be used to widen this train line road. This used to be a train line. There used to be a train line running along this road. It used to be a dam, and then they turned it into a road. Instead of rebuilding the train line, we now have a road for vehicular traffic. This is Mike's Pharmacy building at the intersection here from Blackazite Gardens, train line road. And on this side, that is Bel Air, what is it? Bel Air, Plantation Bel Air. So on this side, this is Plantation Bel Air. That is in fact the home of Dr. Chetty Jagan, who was one of the first political leaders in Guyana. Alright, well here we are on Conversation Tree Road, the new Conversation Tree Road, and the last time we were here it was close to being completed, but it wasn't completed, and I'm just curious. I also want to walk this route again because there was a serious accident on Sheriff Street at the intersection with Dennis Street. A truck killed a pedestrian, well, actually a guy who was jogging. One of the sand trucks ran off the road, killed a pedestrian. So that is Bel Air Road, the sign says, and this is Conversation Tree Road. Let's see if you can see a better shot of it from this side. Right, so this is Conversation Tree Road. We're walking on Conversation Tree Road. And the street we're just passing is Bel Air Road. That road goes into Plantation Bel Air. That's Plantation Bel Air. It's an empty lot here. I think it's going to be cleared and eventually become some other commercial or residential property. Prime real estate here. There's a horse grazing in this lot. In fact, it says property for sale. For those of you looking for property, here's another one. Ryries Realty. This is property for sale. It's a pretty large plot of land. It's a horse. Looks rather unfed. And a bird sitting on its shoulders. Let's see. There he is. It's rather hungry. But yeah, so those of you looking for land to buy, this one seems to be available. It's seems a bit swampy. It's waterlogged. So there's the land at the corner of Conversation Tree Road and Bel Air Street. So that's the entrance. That's the entrance to Stone Avenue, which eventually goes through Campbellville. And we've done a walk down Stone Avenue before. In fact, this particular walk we've done before, so it's not new. Right, these are called ribbon windows. Morning. They are classic colonial architecture. This is also, this seems to be truck stop. A lot of sand trucks here on this lot. So somebody who owns a sand truck company puts their trucks to sleep here. And that's looking back at Conversation Tree Road. But this is what we're here to see. This is the new Conversation Tree Road. And as you can see, they've now marked it out on the other side. Okay, so those of you who want to go visit Dr. Chetty Jagan's residence, it's down this street, right? Chetty Jagan's residence is down this street. We've done the visit, we've walked by Dr. Chetty Jagan's home before. It's called New Haven or Belvoir Court. Right, this is the entrance to New Haven, Belvoir Court, and that's where Dr. Chetty Jagan's home is located. We're on Delhi Street, so this is Delhi Street. We've done the Delhi Street walk before, but they've called the other side of Delhi Street Conversation Tree Road, and that is new. So we're going to take a walk down Conversation Tree Road to see what they've done to it. This is Conversation Tree, right where we've come from, and now this is what happened. They've done road marking. So I was wondering what they would do with this road. They actually made it a one-way north, right? So all traffic heading north is on this new Conversation Tree Road, and traffic heading south is on Delhi Street. So these two roads now have been designated north and southbound traffic, and this is what I said we were interested in checking out. So these sinks and push washing stations, like I said, it's kind of new for different public infrastructure. This one seems to be a waste disposal bin, but this is what it looks like now. On the west side, that community is Campbellville, right? That's Campbellville. Somebody's building a multi-level high-rise apartment building or residential building, maybe commercial building, I don't know, there in Campbellville. So here is another of this new interesting architecture. This is another foot washing station. I didn't know what they were. Somebody pointed out that this would probably be a foot washing station. It would be for kids. It's not something that we're accustomed to. There's water and a drain, but there's no, I guess there's supposed to be a pipe, some kind of pipe. The plastic, this PVC pipe is actually not what you build infrastructure or public infrastructure with, because even if nobody damages it, it deteriorates over time. So on the other side, that community is Prashad Nagar, that runs east of Delhi Street. We've done videos on Prashad Nagar before, so morning. There are also litter bins here. This waste disposal bins have been installed. What they haven't done is done a landscaping, so there's no proper lawn here. This is another sink. This one, I think there's grass growing. Of course, there's no water yet hooked up to these sinks, so I can't say that they're completed. This park is completed, but it is improved. In other words, they've made some progress. They've added, for example, these tables and concrete benches, which is reminiscent of what they did in Old Boys Town on Independence Boulevard, what used to be Punt Trench Dam. So they've added these since the last time we were here, that is a couple of months ago. They've added these concrete tables and benches, but they have not hooked up water. And like I said, the problem with putting PVC pipes on public infrastructure is that it's not durable, right? This is PVC pipe. It's not durable. Somebody could kick it and break it. These are still being used. These public sinks are still being used as garbage disposal. But this is what it looks like here on Conversation Tree Road. We're looking back where we came from. That is north towards, right, that's north towards the highway, the seawall, East Coast Highway, and that's west and now south. And on the other side, that is Bel-Air, not Bel-Air, but sorry, Prashad Nagar. Again, more foot stations. None of these foot stations has water, but you can see foot washing stations. You can see that there is some attempt to create public infrastructure that is, I don't know, unusual. Like I said, you won't find that in any of the parks that I visited in North America. But I understand they are quite common in India. Foot washing is a practice that is quite common in Asia. Well, in India, I don't know, didn't see them in Singapore or Malaysia, although there's a fairly large population of Indians in Singapore and Malaysia. But that's what's happening here, guys. This is the new plantation, the new Conversation Tree Road. The new Conversation Tree Road here in Georgetown, Guyana, and this is, I guess, Conversation Tree Park, strip park. I mentioned in previous videos that the reason why the parkways in New York were called parkways is because Robert Moses, who built the parkways, wanted to exempt himself from the rules of building highways, and so he said, look, these are parks, these are just roads going through parks, and so he reserved 50 feet on both sides of the parkways to be designated as parkland, and that's how he was able to build roads and call them parkways. And I guess this is the idea behind what would be a parkway. You have a park between two highways. This, I think this is, what is this? So on this side it's Pike Street. I think we've seen this before. This is Pike Street in Campbellville. That's Pike Street in Campbellville. That would be called Pike Street in Campbellville. But on the other side, this is called Chandranagar Street. So this street is called Chandranagar Street in Prashad Nagar. Alright, Delhi Street, Prashad Nagar. So we're at Pike Street and Chandranagar Street. We're doing the walk down Conversation Tree Road. Like we said, Conversation Tree Road has now been completed and road markings have been installed. So for example, here at the intersection of Pike Street, this is Conversation Tree Road. It's a road that now has one-way traffic heading north. Right, that's looking south. We're looking south down Conversation Tree Road. There are, of course, still cows in the neighborhood, cows on the road. and that's looking north on this new Conversation Tree Road. That's looking towards Mike Pharmacy and the seawall. So there are stop signs. They put up stop signs here at Pike Street, and we're looking now in the direction of Campbellville. So that's Campbellville. There's some, I think, hotels, local hotels in Campbellville. But let's continue with our walk down south on this new strip park, which I'm calling Conversation Tree Park, where they've installed these public infrastructure. Again, another sink without water. So I can't say that this is completed. I wouldn't say that they've completed the construction of this park, because as you can see, none of these sinks and foot washing stations have been hooked up to water, but they did install some waste bins. Still cows. Oh, and let me see. So they've actually built a fence on one side. So this fence on the east side of the strip park seems to have been completed in red and blue, mind you, but there's no fence on the west side, although somebody seems to have been intending to build a fence here. And there's a cow, which reminds you that this area used to be country. This was actually not part of the city proper, but it has now been absorbed into what is Greater Georgetown. So like I said, yeah, these photo washing stations, kind of strange and new because I haven't seen them before, but they're not yet completed. They have not yet been hooked up to water. But what has changed since the last time we were here is a lot of these concrete tables and benches have been installed. Still a whole lot of animal droppings on the sidewalk, which tells me that the animals probably enjoy this area much more than humans. And as you can see, homes in Bel Air, sorry, I'm calling this place Bel Air, it's actually Prashad Nagar. Homes in Prashad Nagar, quite different from the homes on the other side in Campbellville. Although I assume that will change eventually as the city becomes more affluent and people start returning to Guyana to build their homes. In the distance, I think you can see what is the tallest residential building in Georgetown. That is a high-rise apartment building on Sheriff Street, or close to Sheriff Street. Right, that's a high-rise apartment building. Buddies started constructing that building for apartments several years ago in Campbellville. Funny. But I think it's under new ownership now. And somebody else here in Prashad Nagar is building a tall residential building. I'm assuming it's residential. It might be commercial residential. But that's what's happening in Prashad Nagar. It's happening all over the city. People are going up taller, and that's because space is restricted. You can't really built out wider because the house lots are so narrow and small. So that is the tallest apartment building here in Georgetown, in Campbellville, near to Sheriff Street. And I think that's 4th Street, Campbellville. But we are on Conversation Tree Road, taking the walk down from the seawall to Dennis Street, and we're almost at Dennis Street. This last street I think is called Campbell Avenue. This intersection before we get to.
Distance 4 miles. Duration 1 hour 12 minutes 58 seconds. Pace 34 minutes 50 seconds per mile.
So somebody's building a mega mansion here in Prashad Nagar. Here at Campbell Avenue. Of course, the street changed its name in Prashad Nagar. And we are on so that's Campbell Avenue, looking west towards the center of Georgetown, towards the central Georgetown and Campbellville. And on this side, it's Delhi Street. And can't remember the name. Some of you can in the comments can remind me the name of that street. But here's looking back where we've come from. That's looking north on Conversation Tree Road, now Conversation Tree Park, towards the seawall where we've come from. And this is looking south. Towards the end of this park, we've actually walked the entire length of this Conversation Tree Park that divides Campbellville and Prashad Nagar. Now, I said in the past, and I still repeat, this area, this reserve, because this is what it was a piece of reserve land, would be suitable for building a light rail, even an elevated rail. So eventually the city would become clogged with cars. This is another a new car service located here, probably a dispatch service for a taxi company. The city will become clogged with vehicles unless you build some public transit. And I don't mean buses, I mean trains, I mean light rail, I mean streetcars. Right? I think that is the next stage of development that's going to make this city better and make it more commutable, more walkable, more livable. If in fact you turn all of the reserve land, and there's a lot of reserve land, which tells me that the city planners initially, that is in the 1960s or 1970s when these communities were built, had very good ideas about planning. I actually make the comparison between what Brazil built. Brazil built a brand new city in the 1960s called Brasilia. They moved their capital to Brasilia. And if you look at Brasilia, capital of Brazil, you can see the architect, the work of the architect, Oscar Niemeyer. So Niemeyer designed most of the state buildings, the government buildings in Brasilia. And 60 years later, they are just as futuristic. They look as impressive today as they did in the 1960s, 1960 when they were designed. And so what is missing from Georgetown, and particularly from the new city, Silica City, that the government is building, is this sense of architecture planning, that somebody actually went out and found the best architects to design the city and to plan how it would be laid out and to design the architecture, the buildings that would be there, like Brasilia did. So this reserve that we're walking on was created in the 1960s. So somebody back in the 1960s planned this. But here in 2024, there's a lack of planning, a lack of, lack of imagination. So while putting a strip park here would seem to be interesting or pleasing to some people, it's not functional in the sense that you don't get the most people using it for the land, the reserve land. So if you'd put let's say you'd put a train line, a light rail, all the way down to the seawall or the train line road, and you ran a light rail down this strip of land connecting these neighborhoods to the city center. Now on Dennis Street you would have another set of light rails, could be elevated rails. This is Dennis Street now, and we're going to turn west on Dennis Street towards the city. But if you look east, this is Dennis Street, and that street runs all the way east to Turkine. It runs outside of the University of Guyana, right? So if you go east on Dennis Street, the direction in which we're looking, that goes all the way to the University of Guyana. This is south. That is Lama Gardens, and on this side section K, Campbellville, and so on. So all of these neighborhoods would be connected to the city center or downtown if you ran a light rail all the way up this reserve land, which is now being called Conversation Tree Road. You had a light rail up that land on the reserve, turning west at this point, right? This is the new bridge that they've built. We're still under construction last time we were here, right? This bridge has now been completed, and that's the intersection with Dennis Street. And now Dennis Street has been completed, but instead of road, what if we had, not instead, but in addition to roads, what if we had light rail that ran all the way from Dennis Street, which is continuous with Lamaha Street, and then all the way down to the old train station, which is now being converted into some kind of park. What if we had rebuilt the train lines? Now what you have is streets that are not clogged with daily commuters, because they can simply get on the train and in 15 minutes be in the city center from any one of these neighborhoods, right? I think they said this is the park, this is the playground where you have to come to register for your cash grant. In Region 4 there are a couple of places now that you can go to register for the government's cash grants. I think this is one of the locations. Probably come back here later on the day to find out if it is. I think the other place is the Aquatic Center on Train Line Road, Pattinson. So the other interesting thing about Dennis Street is it now makes a major intersection with, this is Dennis Street we're on, it makes a major intersection with Sheriff Street, and there was a major accident there about a month ago where a jogger was killed. So this is a guy I think he was an electrician, out for a morning jog, just as I do every morning, and two sand trucks collided with each other at the intersection. One ran off the road and ran over this innocent jogger on the side of the road, on the sidewalk. He was killed, and the truck went down to damage property on Sheriff Street. So that is the problem you have when you put an emphasis on. So that's Stone Avenue. For those of you keeping track, that's Stone Avenue. We've done a walk down Stone Avenue before, and this bridge connecting Stone Avenue to Dennis Street is new, because before they built this bridge, there was no way for you to get across Stone Avenue into section K, Campbellville. So that's section K, Campbellville. There was no way for you to get from this neighborhood, at least not across Stone Avenue. You would actually have to walk along this embankment all the way to Sheriff Street, cross over that bridge to be able to get into this neighborhood on the west, on the south, which is another section of Campbellville, section K, Campbellville. So the roads are good, but what is missing is a more forward-thinking planning effort. Because back in the 1960s, like I said, when Brazil built Brasilia, planning was a huge part of what governments did. Somehow we have lost the art of planning, and now we're just building mindlessly without careful forward thinking, anticipation. So for example, a lot of these intersections now are dangerous because they're new, first of all. They're unregulated, unrestricted, and it's not clear who gets the right of way. So there's a stop sign. I know somebody's put a stop sign at this intersection, which is good. The problem, of course, is that people don't always follow the signs. Some people drive drunk, some people are half asleep, and so on. So planning means anticipating all the ways in which human beings screw up and cause accidents and harm themselves. That is why, for example, you have to build guardrails, not because people don't know that they shouldn't drive off the side of the road, but because if it can happen, it will happen with human beings, right? Because people will make mistakes, and some people are impaired. Some people have ADHD. You might be driving a car, but your mind is wandering. You're on the phone, you're reminiscing, probably having a conversation. This is Sheriff Street looking south. I understand this building here is supposed to have a rotating restaurant at the top, but the guy who is the engineer for the rotating restaurant didn't get paid, and because he didn't get paid, he quit, and they never completed that rotating restaurant. It still doesn't work. But this is Sheriff Street. So there was an accident here at this intersection, damaged property, killed a pedestrian further up the street. Right, that's Sheriff Street looking north. But we're going to continue here on Dennis Street. So the last time we were here on Dennis Street, they hadn't yet completed Dennis Street. But here we are now. It seems as if they have completed Dennis Street. Campbellville. Seems to be some kind of water main pipe. Still have a problem with garbage and silt in the canals. But here we are. This is the new Dennis Street, Campbellville. I think the last time we were here there were piles of clay soil, loam, red sand on this street. They had not even yet finished laying the subsurface. Now they have completed it. They've put a pavement on the surface. They've put asphalt and road markings, and Dennis Street is now completed. On that side, that is Campbellville. In that street, I think it's called Dury Lane. So that's Dury Lane in Campbellville. A Sankar Automotive. It's a parts store here in Campbellville. That's looking east on Dennis Street. We've come down Dennis Street from Conversation Tree Road, and Dennis Street continues west, becomes Lamaha Street, and then goes all the way down to Urquhart Street. It becomes Urquhart Street once it crosses over once it crosses over Main Street, High Street. But like I said, this is a potential route for light rail train system in Georgetown, and we do need local trains. Somebody's arguing with me about whether you should have tunnels in Guyana, subways, and so on. We can. If we wanted to, we could. And that's just an engineering problem, right? The problem is that a lot of people in the comments are not really scientists or engineers, and they lack imagination, just like the people who are running this country. The way you build tunnels, there are two ways. You can actually dig them if you are above the water table. But if you are below the water table, if you're building a tunnel across the ocean, across the river, you prefabricate the tunnel, you build it on land, and then you sink it into the water. You lay it, you anchor it to the subsurface, that is the bottom of the riverbed, and then you pump air into it to drain the water out of it. Basically, you seal it. It's a tube. You build that tube on land, you sink it into the riverbed, sink it into the river, anchor it to the riverbed, and then you pump the air out of it, and now you have a tunnel under the river. The same could be done for tunnels here on land, even though we're below sea level. You could build, if you wanted to spend that kind of money, it could be expensive. Well, drilling tunnels in general is expensive, but that's how you build tunnels. In this case, you would use this same canal. You would put the tunnel on the bottom of the canal, and you would pump the air out once you sealed it, and now you have a tunnel in the city of Georgetown, right? So these are engineering questions, and I get stupid comments all the time from people who don't have enough education or imagination, or even Google. You know, now everybody has access to Google. All you have to do is to Google this stuff, and you will see that this stuff is being done all over the world, in Europe, in Asia, in China, and so on. So a lot of what I say about infrastructure is actually common sense. I don't even have to draw on my physics background to tell you that this is possible, because it's just common sense. You can Google it and find out, verify what I'm saying, right? Everybody has access to Google now. But yes, the point is that this would be the ideal route for building a light rail connecting all of these neighborhoods to the city center, and therefore making it unnecessary to drive a car in the city. Now all the traffic congestion that you see in the videos, especially congestion at Christmas time, becomes unnecessary, becomes moot, because you can get around the city without a car. It's like New York City. 8 million people, but not 8 million people drive in New York City. In fact, you can live your entire life in New York City without driving. This is Middleton Street. That's Middleton Street looking north. Middleton Street actually becomes Lamaha Street again once you cross over the train line. And that's Middleton Street. And that's looking back at Dennis Street. We're going to cross over here and go to Lamaha Street. So Dennis Street now becomes Lamaha Street. The last time we were here, they had completed Lamaha Street, but they hadn't yet drawn in all of the road markings, the road signs and road markings. They seem to have done that now. So this is the intersection of Lamaha Street, Middleton Street, and Dennis Street, right? Dennis Street continues east of Lamaha Street. And here on Lamaha Street, now I would say they need guardrails here as well. Like I said, the reason why you put in guardrails is because human beings will make mistakes. Somebody will drive off of the edge of this road, probably within the next few months, and end up in this canal, because that's what human beings do. So when people tell me, well, Guyana needs more road signs and more traffic signs to deal with the accidents, I'm saying no. The problem is that we have very poor designs. Our infrastructure is very poorly designed, because this is somebody now overtaking at the double yellow line. So if you're a driver, you got a license, you know that this double yellow line means that you can't overtake. But there are people doing it all the time here. You have to wait until you get to a broken line. See, that's again somebody overtaking, driving on both sides of the double yellow line. So that's the kind of lawlessness you have in Guyana, and the reason why you have to build roads, infrastructure that is foolproof. So the way to deal with that in this situation is to make this a one-way street. It's a one-way street, so you don't have people driving. The offense is called driving right of center here in Guyana. In the US, it would be driving left of center on a two-way street. One of the greatest advances in traffic safety, besides having airbags and seat belts to save lives, is when they made divided carriageways. So the highway system, most of the highways in the US, the interstate highways, are divided highways, traffic proceeding only in one direction. That means it eliminates the possibility of head-on collisions, except in the case when somebody drives the wrong way. Somebody drives the wrong way on the one-way street. It's the Blue Martini Bar and Club. In that case, what happens is that somebody's been drinking alcohol, or they're maybe high on some other drug, or maybe they're on some medication, and they're delirious, confused. They drive onto the highway going in the wrong direction, and you get a head-on collision. That happens infrequently, but imagine how much more. See there again, somebody's driving left of center, right of center, where a double yellow line says you can't overtake. So this is what happens in a society, a lawless society, when you don't build infrastructure that prevents people from doing lawless actions. So that is my criticism of the infrastructure that's being built. There's no planning like used to be done in the 1960s. There is no imagination, no forward thinking. So investing in light rail is one way to think ahead about what happens when traffic inevitably increases once you improve the roads. Right? I said this is called induced demand. You build more roads and you get more traffic. And the way you deal with that is you build light rail, alternative transportation, mass transit, buses, trains, and so on. So that would be one way to build infrastructure in a thoughtful manner that anticipates how improving infrastructure will change road use. The other way is to build safety. In other words, build safety into the infrastructure. So now what we have is roads that are deadly. People are crashing into bridges because if you look at Heroes Highway, which we've shown in the past several times, there are these big yellow structures every few, or big concrete yellow bridges interrupting the highway every few hundred meters, and people are colliding into them. Trucks are colliding into them. Recently, a sand truck collided into one of those bridges.
Distance 5 miles. Duration 1 hour 38 minutes 19 seconds. Pace 25 minutes 19 seconds per mile.
So this is Lamaha Street. The embankment, Lamaha Street embankment begins here. This is the train line. This is where the train line turned northeast basically. Alright, so it's coming in from the Lamaha Street train station. This embankment used to be the train line, and the line would turn northeast at this point. Right, so the people were arguing with me about Guyana can't have trains and so on. Guyana used to be a country that had a train line, that had trains. Now if you go into the archives, you can Google it now. There are pictures of school children disembarking from a train at various train stations in Guyana in the 1960s. So we're 65 years later, 60 years later, we don't have trains, and we have people who grew up without trains who think that Guyana can never have trains, which leads me to wonder about human intelligence, because it seems as if each generation is either less intelligent than the last, which means we're getting worse, or intelligence is something that is rare, right? Because it seems as if the majority of people on this, maybe it's the algorithm. The majority of people that the YouTube algorithm is showing this video to are people who lack imagination and are making stupid comments about the videos, who are not able to understand the difference between what is constructive criticism and their own politics. It's actually quite funny. But this is the situation here, guys. This is the end of the rehabilitated section of Lamaha Street. I'm gonna end the video coming up at this intersection. This is Vlisingen Road and Lamaha Street. Lamaha Street becomes a one-way road. Well, no, it doesn't become one way. It actually is two ways. It's a double carriageway, dual carriageway road all the way to, I think, Main Street. Yeah, even Urquhart Street. I think Urquhart Street is also dual carriageway. Anyway, the point about this video is that infrastructure has to be built for safety. And you have to assume that people are stupid, that people will do nonsense, people will break the law, because human beings are lawless unless restrained. And people are not as intelligent as we assume they are. Here we are back at Lamaha and Vlisingen Road. That's Vlisingen Road looking north, and this is Vlisingen Road looking south to connect it to the last video, we should. That's the new Papa John's restaurant. Right, that's Papa John's here at the corner of Lesingen and Garnet Street, I believe. Garnet and Lesingen. That's the new Papa John's restaurant. And we're back where we started, into familiar territory. That's Lamaha Street looking west towards downtown Georgetown. That's the train line embankment, Lamaha Street embankment, and this is where we've come from. That is Dennis Street. If you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening in the fastest growing country in the world, Guyana. Later!